Yo ho ho! What's going on, guys? This is Grim Reaper bringing you a Marvel Cinematic Universe tier list. We've consolidated all 23 movies, all 23 in-universe releases of Marvel. Now, the expectation is to rank them from best to worst, from least acceptable to greatest, from iconic to a miss. Now, before we begin, if you want to support the channel, subscribe below, hit the big red button, and let's begin. I'm not sure if I want to do it in chronological order or order from lowest category to highest category, but let's just start from the first image on the list. So we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. I definitely felt like the second Ant-Man movie was a miss compared to the first one. And the first one was pretty good, but I want to say there was a lot more plot influence or a lot more connection. Maybe settings building than other movies. The entire pen particle situation, I wish if it would have been elaborated upon more so, or like if more of the story would have been emphasized around it. And I know, we're obviously talking about like the main villain was using the same power, re-engineered the power for his own use, made an entire suit of it. So like, what more can you really ask for, right? If the villain has the exact same power as the hero and they have to overcome basically a mirror image of themselves, that's the stereotypical villain and hero dichotomy. But I'm just pointing out that like maybe a different use of the pen particles, or maybe presenting the pen particles in a different light, or having them interact with the story in a different method than just that fundamental way. It just felt like a plot point or a plot tool that like, oh, we're gonna need these pen particles in order to go into the future, so here, put them in the story here. However it may be, we do know that it has the same continuity in the original Marvel comics, so I'm assuming that the storyline is still pretty solid, whether it has that beginning or not. So I'm not complaining too much about it. I loved the humor in part 1, but in part 2 I think it was a little bit more of a miss. I'm gonna put it towards the lower scale movies. Please remember, a lot of these are gonna be subject to change as I start to position them. But on the other hand, the humor of the first Ant-Man movie really changed the game for me. It was more of a curveball to the traditional like Marvel story, or at least the ones that were being released in that portion or in that phase. Ant-Man still brings power to the team, but he came in kind of like as a support or secondary member of the Avengers. Once we had already gotten through the drama of having different members like disappearing to different planets or going through different obstacles or leaving the team for whatever reason. I think Civil War even happened before this as well. I'm not too sure if like Ant-Man coming in really changed the game besides adding another character to the universe. So I'm going to put him in C class because I'm assuming that's why I'm remembering him to the degree that I am. I'm not like denigrating his character. Like, I love this character. I love the person who played the character. Like, he did a really good job, and I think he actually embodies him pretty well. Like, that's I forgot the guy's name. I think it's Paul Rudd, but he's a natural Ant-Man. Like, I could definitely see that person playing that kind of role. It doesn't seem forced to me whatsoever. Like, it's a great fit for the character. He's also subject to moving up. Ant-Man, the first one, is subject to moving up indefinitely. So the first Avengers movie, Age of Ultron. So I don't necessarily hate Age of Ultron anywhere near as much as other people. I've seen most of the Marvel movies at least 3 times each, if not more. Ultron was like, he had a really high potential, especially with his dialogue. The guy that plays him, I forgot his name, but I've seen him in other media before, and he not only has the ability of humor, but he's a pretty good actor as well. So to see him play the role so well, and like the dialogue wasn't the best, but he was clever enough to like make a difference to where you wanted to listen to what Ultron was gonna say next. So I did appreciate that when it came down to the writers, and I guess the writers are gonna have to attribute the dialogue to the character. So that's kind of the the dynamics of storytelling and movie making. But 100%, I don't think Age of Ultron is like at the bottom listing of the Marvel movies. I don't think it's the best Avengers movie for sure, but pretty sure this is also where we got the Iron Man versus Hulk fight. Yeah, you can't just disregard that like that. That was pretty great in there too. What else did we get in there? The entrance was kind of weird because they were fighting these like Russians or whatever, but they did happen to lift the entirety of the city, wasn't it? Yeah. What was it? Not or forgot where it was, but it was a spectacular like setting, and to see like Fury come in at the last moment with one of the helicarriers that had been decommissioned after the events in Civil War, like that was game changing. I messed with Fury's entrance like that. I did want to see more climactic fights though amongst the rest of the guys. I guess seeing the Iron Man versus Hulk was like the way to like take Hulk out of the situation, or to like I guess fulfill Hulk's big fight in the scenario. But the mismatch is just Ultron did need to present a bigger threat to all the heroes, and I guess that with his intellect, that's what he did. He presented a threat in a different method to them, and they couldn't use their same like powers as they did before. And like once again, their teamwork came and became an obstacle to them. So they were they themselves became more of the problem. They themselves caused more issues than anything. But I think it was still okay. So I'm gonna put Avengers: Age of Ultron in the C category before Ant-Man, and that'll be subject to moving up as well. Endgame, I think, is gonna go in the F category. This was dumb. Like the time travel stuff was predictable. It's one of the reasons why I personally stay away from comics as much as I do, because of all the time shenanigans and how a continuity, you can't be sure which continuity is which, and there's supposedly a bunch of different lores, you don't know which are applicable. And I guess to an extent it doesn't really matter, but there is an appeal to having an existing lore that's that old. Like for example, in the examples for anime, like One Piece. Like One Piece's lore is one continuity, and it's several years in the making. I think it's like past 20 years now, and there's a variety of stories, a variety of different places, and a variety of different scenarios. And you could say that the Marvel verse is uncomparably more immense than the One Piece world. I definitely agree with that because it's just one world, but the amalgamations, it's still almost the same thing. Like they're all on the same planet. Sure, there may be off-planet individuals, but at least for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't like the huge time travel play. And the fact that a lot of it was just nostalgia. I understand that we were saying goodbye to a lot of these like basically 20-year icons, individuals that really started the verse, from Tony Stark to Steve Rogers, even Romanoff is gone. All the beginning characters that were making highlights and hits in the first 3 movies, in the first 5 movies, in the first phase. Like, I know we had to say goodbye to them, but I feel like we botched that in Endgame. Like, I didn't like that Tony Stark figured out this whole theory and idea and then method of time travel in such a small like span of time. It wasn't days or anything like that, but it didn't take that long. Well, other things took a long time, or you would assume that because it's such an amazing discovery, especially compared to his previous ones, like the Elements, where he spent like what was an entire night, or like I think it's like 1 or 2 nights, like making the element or putting together the replica of the Stark event that his father had left for him. Just observing that, he managed to figure it out. Like he's had some pretty great discoveries in quick time scales. Agreed, but time travel is a completely different scenario. Time travel is a completely different scenario on a completely different scale. It's a completely different thing, and I don't think it was handled correctly at all. Like at all. That being said, I can't ignore the iconic like fight at the end, which was pretty badass. In regards to like Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, and fighting Thanos. The rest of the movie's fights were lacking to me. Like in every single possible aspect. Like I know there wasn't really that much fighting, but even like the strategies that were used, like Thanos coming in after they managed to control Gamora's sister, like even that even the cleverness of that wasn't even that. It wasn't even that great because it was just a reuse of the previous movie. Like in the previous movie, the same ship with the same threat came in, and all they really did was just, once again, go back in time to reassert the level of that same threat. And like, yeah, now we have more Avengers Street than needed, so now there's a reason to actually like have the victory that we would have had. And this may have been even may have been an example of what should have happened in the initial invasion from Infinity War. In regards to a plot wise, I don't mean like story. I don't mean quality of movie wise. Like the quality of movie of Infinity War doesn't compare to Avengers. I'm just saying that like having a big scale fight like this in terms of telling the story is the final part of the storytelling. Like in the first aspect, in the first part, you obviously have to fail, and the thing that you fail at, once you fix that issue and improve upon it, it's going to be what you champion to get the victory at the end. That's exactly what they did. The lack of teamwork throughout all the movies, and then the final culmination of greatness at the end when they're all there, when they all put forth effort and they all get out. That being said, the build up of, or the death at the end of Infinity War, it has to be tied into this film. I wouldn't say that they're one and the same, but they're heavily tied together. It was clear once we started seeing individuals that like you wouldn't expect them to be leaving the verse. Once we saw them dying, it was clear that their deaths weren't going to be permanent, or there wasn't going to be any serious permanent deaths among them. Guys like Spider-Man and Black Panther disappearing, it just made you see that like, okay, they're obviously going to come back. Like with the scenario that we as fans, not even individuals who are like looking at news at the time, but like regular fans just watching these movies, like we know that they have movies coming out or that they're huge franchises and they're not just going to kill these characters off. But if you kill off like what, Black Panther's sister, or if we would have kept alive Warmonger or somebody of importance, maybe the other warrior girl from Wakanda, the leader of the armed forces, I forgot her name, maybe killing her off as a permanent death. Like that's what we wanted. We thought that finally a studio was going to take a huge chance in storytelling and literally kill these characters off, because if anything, it's a comic verse. It's Marvel. You can bring them back using like artificial means later on, and it won't be like cheap if you build it up correctly. You know, first bring back some villains using that same power. Make it an issue for the heroes that somebody can bring individuals back, until it comes down to the point where the heroes themselves have to use it, and then they become more comfortable, and then they resurrect some of the characters that were dead, and then now they're back, and we make up some stories or some dilemmas that they have to deal with because of that. It's fine. You know, there's a bunch of things that you can do with it, and I'm not saying that like that's a superior path that they should have went, because I'm not a story writer, I'm not a movie or a film writer or anything like that, so they have their own obligations and their own things to worry about. But like, we knew they weren't dead. It was just making room for the original main cast to have time in Endgame, and it was obvious. So that's why I think Endgame was dealt with really badly, at least publicity wise. 100% was dealt with badly because of that, in terms of protecting the story. Like those two indefinitely conflicted. Protecting the storyline and selling the movie were two conflicting things, and they definitely chose selling the movie over protecting the storyline a lot more so. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't more disappointed than Endgame. Like Endgame really disappointed me. Really disappointed me. I haven't been disappointed by any Marvel movie like that. Even ones that I don't look back favorably upon. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by a Marvel movie besides Endgame. But Infinity War. This is the best movie in the MCU by far. Without a doubt. Not only was the entrance of Infinity War like godly crazy with the attack on New York, something that like I don't know if you guys pay attention to it or not, but like that's always done to like bring more shock and more intensity to the situation because it's happened before. It's the spot of our most recent greatest trauma as Americans in New York and what happened on 9/11. So to go back there again, to have another invasion, another attack, and our heroes once again, we fail to stop it. So just looking at it from a standpoint outside of the story, you can get that as a reason to get invested into the tale and to see how these characters deal with it on their own scale or on their own independent storylines. But in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and in terms of the plot, the New York battle was it set the tone for the entirety of the movie. Since Doctor Strange had come into the MCU, since we saw the capabilities that he had, since we saw the actor that was playing his role, we were just anticipating an interaction between Doctor Strange and Iron Man. That was just, it's what we wanted. Out of all the interactions that we were going to get in Infinity War, that's the biggest one that we were after. And I didn't mean to skip over the point, but that in itself was one of the biggest things we were looking forward to in Infinity War. And that's what makes Infinity War that much better, because the things that we were looking forward to, that we were anticipating, they actually had value. They actually showed up, and they hit harder than we had any like nobody had anticipated or guessed it. Even the individuals that were dropping spoilers, like they didn't describe it well enough to really like bring the impact to seeing all these guys out there, like Thor, the raccoon, the interactions between Peter Quill and Thor, like Hulk out there, like don't get me wrong, like Hulk messing around like that, like it's understandable. Like he didn't show up for the entirety of the movie, but that first scene, bro, that first scene excused Hulk for Infinity War enough because it gave you that anticipation for Endgame, and that's another piece where Endgame fell off because we didn't get that ferocious monster of a Hulk. We got Professor Hulk, which is to me a complete like just downscale of what was great about the Hulk character in general. But that first sequence there where he went hands in hand with Thanos, it was just getting mollywopped. Like the guy that we've seen like just do that thing to everybody. You just can't mess with him. He got man-hitted and put to sleep like nothing. It set the tone for Thanos for the entirety of the movie, and it lets you know that at least he's getting these stones, but at least he'll give you these hands too. So it was just like the hate of Thanos too. Like there were so many great things about Infinity War. Infinity War was hyped up and it was brought perfectly. It was one of the greatest things, even event-wise, that we had gotten cinematically in a long time, if not in all of movie-making history. It has to be a blip. It has to be a milestone. A culmination of 20 movies, a universe a thing that individuals didn't really try to do. It's not that it was unprecedented. We've seen trilogies before. We've seen like little sequences in movies. We've seen little genres, TV shows. We've seen all kinds of things like that where continuity remains. But to have a multitude of films all within the same universe that are all contained stories within themselves, but that also connect within each other, building a greater story cohesively to the degree that they could, like to reach Infinity War was mission complete. All you had to do was just fire through, and then Endgame put a stifle in that. But I believe Infinity War did the job regardless of Endgame. Thanos was pivotal. The seriousness, the tone, the ferocity, the tenacity of his goals, of his intentions, that it wasn't that he was just some villain that wanted to do something, or that he had some little like it wasn't little. That was the big thing, that it wasn't little. And he had the greatest of convictions for that non-little goal. He wanted to eliminate half of existence because it was too much. Whether the logic was sound or not, he took action as if the logic was sound. And the power that he had behind his intentions just made it that much more serious. That like what he wants is not good for you, but he's going to get it. He's going to inflict his will upon you, and if you don't fight back, you know what his will is going to be. Like he told you what it is. He's going to kill half of you, and you have to stop it. Trying to stop it, you might die, but if you don't stop it, half will die. It was. There were so many aspects of Infinity War, and I haven't even gotten to the final battle where, to me, one of the high points of Infinity War was when Doctor Strange came out and took on, I think it was a 3-stone, 4-stone Thanos by himself. A 3-stone Thanos by himself, showing you the strength of the sorcerer. Now, I don't care about any of the power scaling or any of the things that happen in the comics. In regards to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man is one of the stronger characters. It's why he was also able to fight Thanos by himself. Doctor Strange, from what we saw, is a 3-stone being, and we wasn't even using his stone. And we know how quickly he can resort to that. We saw the lengths that he went to fight off Dormammu and the effects that had gotten out from that dilemma there. Reversing back time and just... He's done it. Like, you shouldn't mess with time travel. We saw, I think it was the guy Caecilius told him, and that he left because of it. And I'm still waiting for that huge bubble to pop. Caecilius may be probably like one of the better Easter eggs, or not Easter eggs, one of the better like plot points that we still have hidden and well built from the original phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. After Infinity War, it's been different, but we'll see. Far From Home is acceptable, but man, the only part of Infinity War that like I somewhat didn't necessarily like that much was Thor's journey. I loved a lot of the dialogue, but to have a star like this, just the star part was kind of crazy to me. But the addition of Stormbreaker was exceptional. I loved having that weapon there. I loved how his character, like, it's as if he was assuming the duty of doing that. Like, his father's gone now, and the realms are in trouble. Before, he was like all righteous and all like a warlike prince, just stout and quick to anger for anything, challenging the frost giants when there was no need to, putting the entirety of Asgard in danger for his own selfish intentions. But now it is his duty. Now war has come to him, and he stepped up like a true king. Like, Thor was indeed the powerhouse here. There was no Captain Marvel. Even she, like, failed to be pivotal, even in Endgame. Sure, we could talk about the ship, fine. But I'm talking about going head on up against Thanos. If a stone Thanos came up, I don't think she'd be able to fight it like that. I don't think she'd be able to. The one that we saw in Infinity War, if Captain Marvel showed up, I think she would struggle just like anybody else. Sure, we could play her up, but I'm glad they didn't put her in there, because I think she would have deserved to have had a display like Spider-Man, where Spider-Man was fine, but he couldn't really take Thanos head on. The rest of the guys, though, like, Infinity War was really like, it was probably like the best movie I've seen in a long time. Like, Marvel wise, like comic wise, like Joker was pretty good, but it was a different kind of movie. You know, the Bane movie was amazing. The original, or not the original, the second Dark Knight, I think it's the second Dark Knight, where Heath Ledger shows up. Exceptional. Those are probably some of the best ones that are out there, man. Like, great comic movies, and there are plenty more out there that I just haven't mentioned, but Infinity War probably tops them all for a while. Black Panther. I think T'Challa got like outshadowed by Warmonger here. And Warmonger actually had a pretty like a really good like story and like actual plot in the beginning where he came in with force, like had the challenge and everything, was straightening the continuity of like the of the village and everything. Like his whole like sequence of action moved the plot forward, and that's very good. But I think T'Challa was just a part of his plot instead of actually leading and running the story. Like, I don't think it was T'Challa that had to regain the crown in order to truly maintain his Black Panther title and maintain the kingship over Wakanda. I think it was Warmonger's to lose. And the plot really let him down because there was no real reason why he lost besides the combat of the suit. And the opposing tribe saving T'Challa's body when they found him. Nothing but that. Regardless of that, he had won. Whether his like actual goals and whether like his philosophy was like justified or not, because a lot of these villains have like crazy philosophy that isn't justified. I don't agree with Warmonger's philosophy whatsoever. I don't agree with Thanos' philosophy whatsoever. But they pushed through with their convictions and they got things done. And they used force to do it. And I have no like I'm positive that Warmonger would have gone through with this plan of like arming individuals throughout the United States and throughout different places around the world regarding race because of this aspect. I no doubt with that. And he alone carried that entire movie. I love the technology displays that we saw for a bunch of them. There were a bunch of cool scenes too. Like the one that went to the Asian like marketplace and they went to that the betting casino area. They had a shootout there. The fights that were going on there, the car. T'Challa's sister is an interesting character. She's probably gonna be leading the next Wakanda Black Panther story. It was a good movie to a degree, but I feel like because we gave if they would have taken the path that they took all the way of like the true usurpation of Wakanda by Warmonger, then that would have been cool. Like ending the movie with T'Challa actually like not having power and having lost indefinitely, and like the future of Wakanda truly being in peril and underneath the control of Warmonger, and him like really preparing his intentions, do what he's gonna do, like already sending out the ships, and they're already around everywhere, and that's gonna be a plot point for the next phase or after Endgame or whatever. It would have been fine. It honestly would have been like that would have worked better. And like I said before, I'm not a screenwriter, so it's just my opinion. But by giving T'Challa more importance than they decided to give him, or then they like should have justified it, that they actually justified. Like I don't know how to put it properly, but like that took away from the story, man. Like Warmonger got cheated out of that. T'Challa didn't like. He literally just accepted Warmonger's or half of Warmonger's story. Like he did exactly what Warmonger said that they need to be doing, going throughout there and adding their influence to help their people. Like the story literally proves that Warmonger had the right idea. He was just doing it with force the wrong way. The extremists instead of the moderates, and the moderates won. So like, honestly, I feel like Warmonger got cheated there, and that we should be seeing a hostile Wakanda in the Marvel Cinematic Universe underneath the state of underneath the control of Warmonger, and Black Panther should be working underneath the working with the Avengers to fight it. That's what should be happening. All the characters should stay in. Honestly, it would have been a better storyline because, and then when you get the Atlantis with the what's the guy? What's his name? Not Aquaman. Namor. When you get the Namor and Atlantis storyline, which is supposed to be coming, supposedly, I think it was in Infinity War, that either I think it was Infinity War or Endgame or Black Panther, that we got an Easter egg that possibly was mentioning Atlantis or Namor's appearance or introduction into the universe. But regardless of that, that would have been a better way to start that out, because apparently Namor and Atlantis has a rivalry with Wakanda and Black Panther. So that would have been a great way to like give Black Panther his own like importance, affiliated with another character, which would also help that other character, but separate from the main cast, separate from like the influence or the shadow of Iron Man and Captain America, because that's really what it is. Like Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Black Panther are like well, they're still in there, so they are like the next phase of the leading team. Like these are the faces, the guys that like unpopularly in most of comics, but they took the path and led the way for the MCU and the rest of these characters here. It made it so that like you don't have to be an A-class character in order to be like exceptional in movie making. So I would love it if Namor the Submariner had a rivalry with Black Panther, because he's not doing his job, because he's not leading Wakanda, and there's a war-loving tyrant leading his nation by force, and they have to follow because he failed to win something, and he still has the official powers of the Black Panther because Warmonger did officially burn all the lotus flowers or whatever, and they did end up saving one for T'Challa, so he got his powers back or whatever. But all he has is one suit now, or he's limited in technology that his sister is smuggling out to him, and that Warmonger is constantly on his sister's like neck, trying to kill her or execute her or whatever for wars against the treason, wars against the country or whatever, by giving weapons to foreign people. Like that would be a great little like thing to throw. Like I'm just saying, like I said before. Third, fourth time. I'm not a screenwriter, but Warmonger should have ended Black Panther as the leader of Wakanda. T'Challa should have been exiled with Black Panther powers outside of Wakanda, and Wakanda should have been a rogue enemy state that's going around the world trying to influence things, like a rivaling power to the United Nations, and they have the technology to do it. And almost all countries are going to be inferior to them combat-wise. Maybe not the United States, and maybe a global effort will be something to rise up against them, but I'm also not talking about pushing it to the extent to where like Wakanda becomes like a Nazi type reflection or anything like that. It wouldn't be to that degree. Obviously, I think the storyline would have to end with like either Black Panther 2 or 3 with the people themselves, Wakandans themselves, actually defeating the tyranny of Warmonger and the individuals who've sided with his influence. That's what would be the resolution of it, not just all out war. Maybe part 2 or Black Panther 2 could involve war that way. Could involve a warmonger actually going out there and waging war up against the world. And then the end of Black Panther 2 could be the individuals like, trying their best to hold off like a resistance movement, the assault and the war effort to Warmonger, but at the same time not being able to flat out commit treason. That would have been a great setup for Black Panther 2, but I do think that Black Panther was squandered because of that. I think that we were led to believe that Black Panther himself was going to be the cast because of his introduction in Infinity War, and he was going to be leading the storyline, and he definitely fell short from that role. I guess the other characters in the settings do make up for a lot of that, but I don't think it can be given the highest of ratings because of that. I'm going to give it a B rating for now until some other movies come into display. Civil War. Civil War is probably like, or arguably, I'm going to say the next option when it comes to the consideration. Like, a lot of people have a number 2, a lot of people have a number 1. A lot of people have the Winter Soldier above it. Personally, the introduction of Black Panther and Spider-Man are two things that push the movie over the edge too. Not out of all factors, but out of the rest of the factors that I can that I'll try to articulate here in a second. I do think that those are two pivotal ones that just helped. Black Panther came in bad ass with the entrance from coming from above, taking on Warmonger hand to hand and swinging that like not only with physical strength but in technique he can match him, and he could probably even match Captain if not Warmonger, if Bucky, and he when he fought Bucky, And if he can match Bucky, then he could probably even match Captain. And I think we saw that a little bit towards the final battle or the second stage battle in the airport, but not to a full degree. They definitely held back, or they weren't showing all that they could. Iron Man played an amazing part here. I love the politics and the play that came in there. We even got the return of that one general from the original Hulk movie that showed up. I think it's like General Ross, Secretary Ross, something like that. Great way to connect more plots of the story back into each other. Keeping it in universe. I didn't necessarily like some of the other characters, like big plays, like Romanoff. She was somewhat important for all the like the secret spy connections, but I don't know. I feel like a few of them were just there to like take up space. Like Vision is fine, but he didn't play his part. A biggest part is like we wanted him to. Like the entirety of all the movies. Let me not say the entirety of the movies. Since Vision showed up, he was supposed to be a juggernaut, a game changer. Compared to even Thor himself, he lifted the hammer without a single issue. Like we've seen his powers of intangibility. We've seen how he can fight. Like I'm sorry to say it, but like Vision was a complete disappointment the entirety of the MCU. And even in Infinity War, where he did get a chance to show out a bit, it was extremely limited. Like the entirety of the MCU, he was limited and nerfed. And not even nerfed compared to comics. I'm talking about nerfed compared to like the hype that was like portrayed in like the initial like just description of what he was. Like armed with all those weapons with like made of that like vibranium suit. Like he was just supposed to be badassery, but I don't know, more often than not, Vision was like handled or taken out of combat or made like a non-factor by individuals who are not the strongest in the opposing team. Anime does a really good job with that, of like where the enemy or maybe even the main cast, when they're having to face a superior enemy, their main strategy would be to like have their strongest guys neutralize that main threat and then have the remainder of the team work exceptionally hard and put in all kinds of work to beat superior enemies in them. And that's where you get development to where those side characters now have gone through some really like, turbulent times with you. And now they have merit. Now you've seen them, now you're closer. It develops those characters, but not here. Like, Vision just gets taken out. It's a movie, I agree. But still, man, like, Falcon didn't really hold that much importance to me besides being like right there on the side of Captain, like almost a sidekick. Like, Captain America did how do I put this? He was the other good part of the movie. Like, I do have Civil War as like my number 2. And it's largely because of Iron Man and Captain America. But I guess the biggest factor is that reveal and that hit. Like, the fact that Captain knew. When Iron Man asked him, you knew. Then he dropped that helmet like it was. By all accounts, I think that everybody. Not only do we have our money combat wise on Iron Man's side, but like through the eyes of like righteousness, I would say, or like justice, I was on Iron Man's side. I definitely think that Captain America and Bucky were wrong for that, but we know the circumstances and the truth of the scenario, that he was brainwashed, he was under that influence, that this is the guy that Captain America was friends with. Like, this is his boy. Like, he's known him longer than even he's known him since back in the day. So like, I get it. I get the connection there, and I get the truth of the matter. But he did kill his parents, and you did hide it from him. You did do that. So I respect Captain America for making the decision instead of standing out of the way and letting them handle it because he did kill his father. He said, "No, I'm going to protect him, and that's it. We're going to go with what I say." And it's a great play, and it's a credit to the screenwriters and Feige and whoever else put it together because it is a rift that should expand across multiple movies. And the fact that it did expand across multiple movies is 100% justified, and it 100% put a hitch into the Avengers. That whenever Infinity War came, you truly felt that reconnection. You truly felt the culmination of all the guys coming back. And like I said before, the duos and the interaction between the mixed matches of characters from different movies was just made so much better with the fact that we 100% like these guys don't like each other. Like these guys are separated and they're having to deal with this craziness all across the universe, all across the 7 realms. They're having to deal with this craziness. They're split up, so none of them individually can deal with the great threat that Thanos is bringing, and the destruction in his wake. But together, they managed to do it. And Civil War is like the spark of that separation zone. It's up there. I'm gonna give it the A category. It's the best one so far. So something else matches it. What is that? The Winter Soldier. Okay, so First Avenger. I kind of liked the whole back in the day feel. What was it, the 1940s, late 1930s, like 1939. But it was really like 1942, 1943. I forgot what year it was exactly, but the Red Hood wasn't as an appealing character to me. Like he was more like a stereotypical even villain type, like a way back in the day stereotypical even villain type. Like no extra crazy superpowers. He was just using the power of the Reich and like magic and stuff like that. The story was nice though. Like that plot that they have for Captain America, that setting, it's great. That's why we'll give it an acceptable rating, and I will put it up there with like a B or an A, because 100% like that plot, the story built around Captain America, that he was a soldier back in the day and he's a super soldier. He a wimpy guy, powered up, went in there with the bravery and the tenacity of the American spirit, and then he went there to take down some Nazis, and he did it. He did it well. He rescued his boys in a very tough scenario that went back in to handle some more stuff, and he ended up having to sacrifice himself. I wish the connection between him and Peggy, or him and the girl, would have been like stronger. We would have got more time to develop it. It would have got more screen time, but it is what it is. Scene at the end was kind of like a little drastic, like the huge ship on that entire runway and the car there, like all that. It was all cinematic stuff. It was all there, but like I said, I like the 1940s like scenery. I like the feel of it, and Captain America's story as a super soldier was pretty good back then. Like I thought he was kind of corny when I first like heard about it, because I'd never seen it before. But then once I saw what he was really about, like he uses guns. The shield's there. It's a pretty good shield. Ricochet back and forth or whatever, hand to hand, and his American spirit or whatever. Like, I was all for it. I still think his shield is kind of a lame weapon, but he has all the other intangibles, so he met all the standards as leader of the team. Next we have the Winter Soldier. Arguably one of the, probably like, people say it's probably like the best movie of the MCU, if not top 3. The plot twist here, I didn't see it coming at all. Like, especially the elevator scene, I did not see that coming at all. And I didn't understand the whole thing with S.H.I.E.L.D. because like I said, I wasn't huge in the comics or anything like that. So I didn't know that like S.H.I.E.L.D. turns, that Fury turns, or that like nobody else turns, or like the people turn on Fury. I didn't know any of that stuff. Like, and it just happened. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And like the espionage, like people trying to assassinate Fury, like Fury having to run, like it was. Winter Soldier was a movie, and then Bucky coming in like with those fight scenes like that. He was pivotal. He was actually like the weapon of the main villain guy. I usually love the dynamic where like the main villain has more than one dangerous aspect to him, and maybe one of his dangerous aspects is one of his minions, a really tough minion who matches your combat capability, while the main villain himself matches your intellect. Like that's a great little plot setup there that I loved. It wasn't necessarily exactly like that, but to have that threat there that Shio's now trying to take threats out ahead of time, and that like we have these helicarriers gonna go assassinate all these people ahead of time so that we can reduce crime indefinitely. It added a bunch more twists and preemptive issues that were like already going on in the real world in our country at the time period, like how the government has all kinds of like surveillance capabilities that like are now like extremely encroaching upon our freedoms, like being able to listen to our conversations, our mails, all kinds of communications, like most of the things that you do in your life. Like they basically already have the ability to scour through the entirety of your privacy, and now they have a much more sophisticated way to do it. So to see that same dilemma being portrayed in the movie and seeing how they managed to like idealistically deal with the issue, it's disheartening because we haven't dealt with that issue. But it was interesting because they got you to relate to the movie that much more so, and they got you to really see the threat that like the helicarriers bring, the back and forth in the situation that was going on with Fury and the other officials there at Shield, the front that it was the entire time. Like it was a flip, and it was a twist that actually came in really good. So I'm gonna put Winter Soldier as good as Civil War, right next to Civil War. Captain Marvel did have a similar twist there with the Kree not actually being the enemy and her people. Actually, I think it's a Kree or forgot the names. I forgot the names. I saw the movie like one time. It's like one of the only ones I've seen. No, I think it's the only one that I've seen only one time. But I didn't like the animation, or I didn't like the CGI that much. Like the whole pilot thing was cool, but like I don't know. I was expecting more from like her people. They seemed like badass warriors. It seemed like all of them were supposed to have those kind of powers, but they didn't. Like there was a bunch of different things that like just didn't play out exactly. I did like seeing Fury back in the day. I did like seeing that whole like when they first arrived to Earth. I'd like seeing that whole dilemma that was going on there. Like when the shapeshifter guys were like first going through everywhere, like matching everything the age and stuff like that. Like it was cool to see that whole secret agent, like that whole like conspiracy thing that we used to hear about back in the day. How like the G5 or whatever, I think it's called a G5 or the G7 or something like that, were like the secret agents in the black suits or whatever, the men in black or whatever, and the shapeshifters or whatever like that. Like yeah, 100%. Like that's that was hilarious, and that was like kind of cool to see. It was clever. I don't know if I like her as like. Oh, she's all right. Yeah, it was kind of like one of those stereotypical like 60s, 50s, 70s, I think. UFO stories in the desert with Air Force pilots or whatever. Kind of like what you call it, Independence Day. Reminded me of Independence Day a lot, actually. I had more expectations from her character because of all the hype that I had heard from the comic side. And like I said, the CGI wise, it wasn't that appealing. Like her energy blast or whatever. Like I don't know. Like you have to do super people better. People that can fly and have super strength, you have to do them better. Like the animation did good. Like Man of Steel, an amazing job. And I think it's because you actually got to see them punch and kick and actually use their limbs as they're flying around and doing things. It wasn't just like their hands are like stuck together in a super flying position. I'm gonna fly to this ship, like she did with the whole thing in Endgame. Like that was kind of dumb, and like I don't know, she's a little too overpowered to me. Like I get how she's overpowered in the series or in the comics, but there's no relation with the comics in regards to like power disparity. Like Thanos wasn't wielding the gauntlet like he did up against Doctor Strange, up against Captain Marvel. Like if she would have went up against him like that, then I would have been like, okay, this is justified, and it was the perfect chance to do it. Like if she's that strong, okay, put her up against a character who's justifiably that strong. But we didn't do that. Like at no point was Captain America fighting somebody who was within her league. At no point, and it took a lot away from the character. It took a lot away from the character. And yes, I know she had the little scuffle there with Thanos in the end game, but like even the animation for that or the CGI for that wasn't even that spectacular. It was, I don't know, man. Like I think you dropped the ball with Captain Marvel a little bit, but I am anticipating to see more of her. But I don't want her to be the leader of the team. She hasn't earned that to me or anything like that. Alright, next we have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange was a good movie. And Kaiseri's breaking apart after so many people warning him of time travel. The original Sorcerer Supreme, like she was very influential. Like very, very influential. She led him throughout the entirety of his journey, like super wise, like in all the best moments. And then her death was like, man. But he became the Sorcerer Supreme. And he wielded the stone to do it. And I love the fact that he actually ended up fighting without the stone for a good portion of the movie and was holding his own. That's what we were looking for. That to see Doctor Strange actually fight with these powers, and we got to see. And they were making all kinds of comparisons to Inception because of the CGI that they were going to be using, and it was done exceptionally well. Like probably some of the best CGI in all of like the MCU. Like Wakanda was pretty good. In terms of like the setting and like the vehicles they were using and stuff like that. And Iron Man's always like, exceptional. But bro, Doctor Strange is a whole different level with all the shapes, all the psychedelic stuff, and like I like the reality or like the concreteness to an extent that they have with the magic system. Like it's to a degree consistent. There's nothing too inconsistent about it. There's nothing too crazy that we've been shown so far. Everything seems to be within somewhat of a realm of being explained, or at least reference to like or has a weakness. The power of the weakness, right? Where he's looking through these spell books to do a certain spell, or he needs different ingredients, or like he might get tired, or like people are faster than him, so if you can move faster, he can cast a spell or something like that. A lot of these spells that he casts are like they do physical attacks, so like he's throwing fire, or he's creating whips, or he's flying, or he's like restraining things. He has some more clever magic too. Like Doctor Strange was really a good movie. It was a good installment into the verse, and I didn't think that they overdid anything. I didn't think that I don't really know the story of Doctor Strange. All I know is that like apparently he has a strong connection with Doctor Doom as well. So I kind of got them confused to a certain degree, but not to like I didn't know enough about either of the characters. So I just know that Doctor Doom's affiliated with the Fantastic Four, and Doctor Strange is the other guy. So to see Doctor Strange come in, he was a game changer. The whole surgeon, cocky, pompous surgeon story, loses his ability to do his work, and then runs into this in his feverish struggle in trying to get his hands back. He runs into this magic monk that won't necessarily heal him, but gave him a different form of healing. And now we have the Sorcerer Supreme. I really enjoyed the movie. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I liked 1 better. We didn't have all the lovey-dovey stuff there at the end. But Guardians of the Galaxy movies are good in general. Peter Quill is nice. No, Peter Quill's great. He's probably out of the MCU, probably my top 5, top 10 favorite characters. And there's a lot of characters in the MCU. I didn't care for his dad too much. The whole ego thing was whatever. But I wish he would have kept that power. That's what I really kind of wanted. Him to keep that power so we could have fought Thanos and been like a threat, just like Doctor Strange is a threat. But he didn't do that. His connection with Gamora was like, it's done really, really well. Not the most well, but it's like one of the better love connections. I think it's like the only love connection out of the majority of the main Avengers. And I think the only consistent one, actually. But Rocket Raccoon is one of the best characters in the entire series. Groot is a good compliment. Dave Bautista that plays Drax or whatever, like his humor has been getting better and better, especially with Mantis. That tandem there, Mantis is a good addition and is a plus for this movie. The death of the other guy though, and it is what it is. Like he was Peter Quill's real dad to an extent. He saved him. We found out the truth that he was just there trying to save him and stuff. So it's not a bad movie whatsoever. Like at all. I want to put it up there. Yeah. Yeah. I think Doctor Strange is better than Black Panther. Alright, so let's go to Guardians of the Galaxy #1. Introduction of Peter Quill. Gamora meeting up, just the meeting that they had at the prison break, like then coming out the whole dance battle, like the destroyer guy who actually came a pretty serious threat to a degree. Like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was a great movie. Like the change up into space, we've been terrestrial for a long time, was amazing. To see humans in space like that, to see the variety of different aliens that are going to be out there, to see like the casual interaction amongst them, like Guardians of the Galaxy was a really, really good movie. Like the music soundtrack, like Quill's like signature music or whatever, how you like it plays on the movie too as well. Like Guardians of the Galaxy was really, really done, and it is really appealing. And there's an entire like Guardians cult in the MCU gang. Like people love the Guardians, and I'm one of them. I don't want to say I'm in that cult or I'm in that group, but I love Guardians. Amazing. Next we have Iron Man 3. Iron Man 2. The Iron Man trilogy is probably of the better trilogies. I don't think we have like any like real true trilogies in the MCU right now. Let me see. Captain America. Well, Captain America is probably the best one. Then we're gonna count his. I think those are the only two ones. Thor, I guess, but Thor had a little shaky one. Regardless of that, though, Iron Man comes in with the issues with the United States government now. He revealed that he actually is Iron Man. The amazing millionaire. Maybe even billionaire. Or a millionaire. Tony Stark, the playboy. The the Merchant of Death. Changed his ways in Iron Man 1, and now we're seeing the proliferation of his actions. With the Expo, the Stark Expo, with the acceleration of that disease, of the poisoning, the craziness with the reveal of his father, the original intentions of his father. Like, there was a lot that came into Iron Man 2. And it's one of the classic movies. I think out of all the MCU movies, I've seen the Iron Man movies the most. I love him suiting up. That's probably my favorite part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When Iron Man gets into his suit. Whether it was in the original Avengers, whether it was in Iron Man 2, whenever he was driving around on the racetrack and he got the makeshift suitcase suit put it on, and just looked bad. Just kicked the car away and then took on I forgot the guy's name, but took on the electrical whips guy. He showed out, man. And seeing him deal with like unconventional threats like that, like the Russian guy, seeing those drones come out and actually attack the expo, like he actually showed out. And to see him fight drones more, a bunch more of those of the suits or whatever, and the growing threat of other countries building suits or whatever, like it was kind of cool to see him do that, seeing him fight other flying drones or whatever. I was hoping that he would get an actual serious fight. Rhodey, to an extent, led a bunch of drones in an attack after Iron Man, but they never went hand to hand, and they never like displayed their full arsenal of weapons or like what the United States provided Rhodey compared to what Iron Man has in his arsenal. So like, I honestly, like, I'm not one of those guys that hates in the Iron Man movies. Like, I don't really see that many bad things from them. Like, I loved Pepper's like back and forth with Tony the entire movie. Like, that's really what made that movie great to me. Like, not that part, but that's why I'm saying, like, it has everything. Like, he had a relationship with Pepper, and it was shaky. We saw it going back and forth. Like, he's being too reckless. He's dying, and he didn't want to tell her. Like, she found out at the end of the movie. Like, she was almost done with it. She took over the company. like Tony was off of it. Like, Tony was really out of it, and then comes out that he steps up, and then this happens. So like, I'm not gonna downplay the Iron Man movies, man. Like, they're good to me. Next we have Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is a little bit different than the other ones because he was dealing with an anxiety issue for the majority of the movie, and there was a whole extremist thing. I didn't like the whole extremist thing too much, and especially like the whole the Three Rings guy being a fake. That was kind of a weird ploy to me. Like, apparently that he's gonna be the Mandarin. He's gonna be showing up for real in the next phase of movies, or in the next few phases of movies with Shang-Chi or something like that. But Killian was like, he was okay, but I don't know. I know we talked about earlier about like having the mastermind or the main villains like components be like an individuals too, like having a muscle and a brawn type duo going on, and we did have that here in Iron Man 3, but it wasn't anywhere near as threatening. The extremis exploding thing, that was a nice little mystery in there, but it wasn't ever anything that was too like shaking or story debilitating, or not story debilitating, but like it didn't make that big of a hint to the story because it wasn't connected to anybody important to us. Not until Pepper actually got involved and she was threatened. Was it serious to like, or was it? It was something I considered to be like detrimental to the main cast, or like, oh no, somebody could really die or something like that. I didn't really feel it for the majority of the movie. It was a lot of Tony dealing with himself and fighting through himself from like the past issues that he already been with, and kind of like that he decided to overcome the suits, but I don't like that. He definitely did something differently with it. And he also took out the shrapnel from his chest, but it showed that he had finally overcome that problem. That him building all the mocks was explaining, or was an exacerbation or a physical portrayal of what was really bothering him inside. I also loved seeing all the suits and all the different mocks that he'd worked on throughout all that time struggling or whatever. So it was 100% like, it was some really good things about Iron Man 3, but there were some lacking things too. Like, I don't know, man. I'm gonna put it a little bit lower on the scale. It was still good though. All right, the first Iron Man movie. I think it's like the second movie in the MCU, actually. I don't think it really gets that much better than this one. Like, this guy got captured, millionaire got captured, made a suit, broke out of a cave, like, came back, survived, like decided he wasn't gonna make any more weapons anymore because he saw that like the weapons that he was selling and sharing everywhere were the same ones that were killing us. And then he just made a suit to stop it all. His company went rogue, and then it was the storyline, the plot was good. Like the introduction, the first storyline for Iron Man was good, just like it was for Captain America. And seeing him deal with like the F-22s, that flight scene was badass as well. It's like an iconic one. Iron Man up against the F-22s. Seeing him fight the big Obadiah Stane, like that's what I mentioned that was lacking in Iron Man 2. That if we would have got like an Obadiah Stane type fight where Rhodey in the Warmonger or in the War Machine armor fights Iron Man seriously and it's actually a threat, like that would have been badass. Or that would definitely upgraded Iron Man 2. But we already did an Iron Man 1, and like Obadiah Stane was a the fact that he did the whole switch thing, I didn't see that coming. How he like had double crossed he had double crossed his own people, the company, Tony, but he was also double crossing the terrorists that he was like having do all these things. And like, boy, it was just Obadiah had put in some work, and he had like money involved into it, and then having Pepper like slowly getting closer and closer to Tony as the whole journey went along, and like just helping him at the end, saving his life. Like it was the first like really good, like, no, it was just the first movie. It set the tone for the rest of the Marvel universe. Like Iron Man 1, bro. It was a game changer. Spider-Man Far From Home. So I think Far From Home was definitely a hit compared to Homecoming. The main villain guy, he was cool to a degree, but you got a suspicious type like ordeal the entire time. It wasn't too crazy, but like it was kind of too sudden. And there wasn't any like big importance put into the fact that like he had come from a different dimension or a different, like I was like a different Earth or whatever. Like Fury had said. You would think that'd be a much bigger deal. Usually Fury's involved. It's something that like he's calling a meeting for, and like there's a bunch of stuff going on. And to a degree he did. To a degree. But the entire ordeal was like shenanigans. And you could tell. And I didn't like the fact that like the whole school aspect was really like, it wasn't drawn out at all. Like it wasn't like, it was just like, it was kind of dragged along with the rest of the story. And I feel like they didn't choose either of them to be like the main priority of the story. Like it should have been either he wants to do the school thing. And I understand the whole point of the story that like he himself was fighting that dilemma, that he wanted to be at school while he had to do these duties. I get that. But one of those should have been principally the main like push for it. And I understand that like, oh, the whole school trip revolved around the events that happened where he was at. So that's how I intertwined it. But like, I don't feel that they did the villain enough justice. His little drone thing was kind of clever, but I don't know. Like, it was too like, I don't know. It was a little too much, especially with like the whole like illusion thing that we were seeing after a while. Like he's pretty powerful with that, but he didn't do much with it. That's the problem. Like I don't know. Like he had a lot of potential, and then like Tony giving Peter those glasses, all powerful, really powerful glasses or whatever. Like it was a little out of place. I don't think Tony would ever really do that. It's, I don't know. I think Far From Home was a miss compared to a lot of the other movies. But it was still somewhat cohesive. We did get that big reveal at the end of Far From Home, where we get to see that he's like out, his identity is out, and we're going to see how the public's going to react to it. We did get that love affair, the reveal that she knows. So it wasn't the worst movie anywhere out there at all. And then we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Great movie. The traditional like, it's a better version of all the Spider-Man movies that we've gotten before. Now I know we get the trilogy with Maguire. That was pretty good too. That's kind of the one that I still mess with. But I think I actually like this guy's. I forgot his name. The English guy. I forgot his name. But I think I like his version better. He's definitely a cooler aesthetic. The animation that the MCU or the CGI that MCU is using for him is badass. When he showed up during Civil War, it just sold me for the character, and he brought all the hype that I was expecting for Spider-Man. Like, there have not been most things lacking for Spider-Man. It hasn't been there. Even the dilemma that he went through whenever the place fell on him and he had to lift it up, like 100%. Like, I was there for all of it. Like, making his own web spinners or whatever. Like, having Iron Man come through and like sitting there hitting on his mom or his aunt the entire time, like trying to bring him trying to get him a suit, like all this stuff. Like, this was badass, especially, and it got really increased with the introduction of Iron Man into the storyline, and he got suited up for real. Especially with the Vulture being like the enemy there, like literally the dad of his date, the girl that he's like, been all nervous about, the connection there. That's why I love Spider-Man, because even in Far From Home, when they try to make the connection between the actual plot and the school portion of the plot, like Far From Home didn't do it as well, but Homecoming did it really, really well. Like really, 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 really well. So great job on the guys' parts for Homecoming, and I think it's in the top tier of the movies. Right here. Alright, next we have Avengers. Avengers is everything, bro. Like, Avengers is like, we got to see Iron Man versus Thor versus Captain America. We get to see Iron Man and Captain America bash heads. We get to see Thor and Hulk bash heads. Like Romanoff and Hawkeye bash heads. Like, everybody went back and forth. That was one of the better parts of Avengers. Like, the first time we get to see all the heroes, like, not only meeting each other and coming together for the first time ever, but also fighting each other and seeing their personalities clash for the first time. Like, it was amazing, bro. Having Hulk have to basically fall out, jump out, and trying to get him out, or then Thor gets trapped inside the thing too. Like, he has to bust out. Him going to the top of the tower to summon that lightning to try and destroy the gate. You got Hulk smashing throughout all the buildings and meeting Loki at the top, smashing him around like that. You got Iron Man, like when the gate first opened up and he was like, "Oh yeah, the army." And then it was Iron Man versus the entirety of an army versus New York. Right. Like, it was about it, bruh. And you got Captain America in the street talking about like going up to the cops and like directions of what he needs people to do in order to stay safe. And the cops like, "Who are you?" And then he sees him fight T'Challa hand to hand by himself. Cap him, like, just manhandle him. And then he's like, starts doing the orders. Like, everybody showed up in Avengers. Everybody had screen time, and everybody was pivotal. Every single person, even in the moments where like their dialogue was being like emphasized more so, like when they were all in the room with the scepter and their emotions were being amplified, like all kinds of times. The dialogue between Loki and Thor, especially from references of the older movies, like 100%. Avengers is like, looking back on it, Avengers is a really, really good movie. Next we have Hulk. I like this Hulk more than the Hulk storyline than the Hulk that we have right now. I like this Hulk movie than, like, I don't want to say that the role that he's played so far, but I honestly do. Like, it's a different girl that he's falling in love with. He's following a different path. He's along the way going with Thor, going with the Avengers, doing different things like that. But like, here was his own storyline, and we get to see what it is really about, like more in depth into the emotions and feelings. And the other guy that got dragged throughout the rest of the MCU as well. We got to see it, but nowhere near the same depth. Like, the girl that loved him, the things that he was going through, like all the problems, like different places, like the smaller dilemmas that could happen. Like whenever they were in the factory And then like he went through all that issue like whenever he cut himself and got blood inside one of the vials, like he just stopped the entire presses for that. And the attacks that he went through, like destroying the factory, the soldier, forgot the guy's name. That soldier made that movie, bro. Hulk and that soldier made that movie, bro. Seeing Hulk go up against all those different machines, seeing the animation for the CGI for Hulk at that time period was pretty good, actually. Like I didn't, I honestly wasn't like lacking, bro. And then seeing him up against Abomination, that's like the fight that the MCU was lacking. Like the MCU was lacking big monster fights like that. It was lacking that, and to see that, like, bro, we can go through a myriad of these movies that don't have a fight that's better than Hulk versus Abomination. Like Ant-Man doesn't have a fight that's better than that. Captain Marvel doesn't have a fight that's better than that. Spider-Man Far From Home doesn't have a fight that's better than that. Iron Man 3 doesn't have a fight that's better than that. Neither does Ant-Man. Ultron, yeah. Homecoming doesn't. Captain America, the original one, the first Avenger, doesn't. even Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and 1 don't have a fight that's as good as Hulk versus Abomination. Like that, this movie's good, bro. This movie's good. And I like how it ended at the fact that like he when he jumped out of that helicopter too to beat them, and then just, oh man, like that was, I like the first Hulk movie. People thrash it. People trash it all the time. But that Hulk movie was good, bro. All right. Next we have Thor Ragnarok. Taika Waititi was the director of this movie. That's hinting the change of aesthetic. Great change of aesthetic. Hela was one of the, once again, great job in CGI. I love that we were actually seeing like heavier, like good combat. Like these guys are powerful. We get to see their power. We get to see her block all kinds of attacks, destroy Thor's Mjolnir, like have her own huge spear to take on Cerberus, like, or not Cerberus, the I forgot the guy's name, the big fire demon or whatever, the big fire demon fighting and stuff like that. Like Thor Ragnarok was good. Seeing Thor get his haircut, go out to this like weird planet, fights Hulk, seeing Hulk in that state, like that's the Hulk we should have got, like the mean Hulk like that. That's the one that we should have got. Seeing the Valkyrie girl, she showed up. She was badass too. Like she helped. She came back. Her storyline about like being exiled or leaving because of what happened and coming back. Like, man, like there's a lot that happened in Thor Ragnarok that was good. The death of Odin, like Loki and Thor really consolidating. Like yes, they love their father. Like they love their father. Loki realized, like Loki, he had already admitted, but like we already knew it. That whenever his mother died, and we saw what happened, that he wasn't okay with that. And now his father died too. So Loki was just as much as a part of this movie as like anybody else. You had the guy that wrote the planet, who was really funny. His apprentice, the rock guy. This movie had a lot of good characters. Thor Ragnarok was actually really good and actually an entertaining movie. Like even in a rewatch, you would be entertained by watching Thor Ragnarok. I'm gonna put it right here above Black Panther. Next we have Thor: The Dark World. This one had more or like bigger plot points. I liked following the whole like story with the scientists and philosophers in their storylines. Like they played a good role in the first Thor movie. In the second Thor movie, they did a pretty good job too. There was a lot of back and forth and a lot of plot that was in this movie. It was somewhat confusing to a degree. Like the ether going inside of her, like, which was ended up being one of the Infinity Stones and stuff like that. Like them be the villains being like some original species from like way back then, made of darkness, and them trying to harvest the power. Like it was cool. It was kind of flashy, but it was a little bit confusing, a little too big. But I don't know. I don't remember Thor: The Dark World too favorably, but it wasn't a bad movie whatsoever. And we have Thor, the last one. Thor came in as a nice, humble thunder god. Not humble, as the Thor came was a joke, man. Thor came in as like the the rude, boisterous, unruly thunder god, war making and fighter of frost giants. He came in just bashing things. Started war with frost giants up against his father's will. So we got the connection of the rebellious warlike son up against the calm, stoic, accomplished father. You have the girl that he's in love with. He gets sent down. So there's a love story and the story of redemption with his father or whatever. His dad goes into that coma. His brother's in the secret schemes like that. There's a lot of stuff actually going on with Thor 1. A lot of actually really good plots that we're going through. And that I finished. And that actually held like consistent weight throughout the entirety of the MCU. I think Thor is actually a really good movie because of that. Because like like to be honest, like then you got the big machine, the fire building machine or whatever, the Guardian machine. I don't know though. Like, you put it here, right above the other Hulk. All right, well that's probably my list for the MCU. In my S tier, I have Avengers: Infinity War and Iron Man. In my A tier, I have the first Avengers, Captain America: Civil War, Captain America: Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy #1, and Iron Man 2. Maybe I have Iron Man 2 a little high. No, there's a lot that happened in Iron Man 2. I'm sorry, I'm not mad about Iron Man. Like, yeah, I like all the Iron Man movies, especially Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, especially those two. Um, I have Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, definitely. In my B category, I have Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, Captain America, First Avenger, Black Panther, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Thor, the Hulk, and Guardians of the Galaxy 2. In my C category, I have Avengers: Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World. My D category, I have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and Spider-Man: Far From Home. And in my F category, I have Avengers: Endgame. With that being said, boys, we'll see you guys next time. Make sure you guys share the video so others can get to it. That's about it. Yo ho ho!